You're listening to English with Monty, the podcast about the English language. Today is 8-Minute English,
talking about the second and third conditional.
Hello there and welcome to English with Monty. This is 8-Minute English. We're going to be talking about some conditionals. So we're talking about second and third conditional. I've got Gideon with me today. Hi, Gideon.
John, I think this might take 8.5 minutes. Is that too much?
We'll see. Maybe we can edit out the fact that you said that.
Yes, because it's a big topic. I tend to be inconcise, shall we say.
I've never noticed that. We could always spin it out into 2 8-minute episodes if that happens.
But no, it's cheating, John. You know that.
Part 1, part 2.
You're not showing any respect to your listeners if you do that.
Okay, well, let's just get on with it.
Hey, go on then. I'm waiting.
Okay, we've got second and third conditional is what they're commonly called, aren't they? And I would refer to them as unreal conditionals. Would that be a fair assessment? What does unreal conditionals mean? And would we always call them second and third?
I think you're unreal, John. It's an appropriate term. Okay, I'll go with that. Unreal.
You'll go with that. Unreal in that context would mean that I'm amazing, though, wouldn't it? It's not exactly the same.
Okay. Should we do one at a time then? Because these terms are going over my head. But I think you're right.
Why are you
Second
not
and
keen
third.
on unreal?
I didn't say I'm not keen. I'm not keen. I'm just scared of all these technical terms. I just got out of bed. You're throwing this technical thingy at me.
The listeners should maybe be concerned because we're doing this at 6 o'clock in the evening.
Yeah, well, we're in different time zones. No, because you're not in London anymore, are you?
I'm not in London. I'm in Italy at the moment. But let's get on with this. We've been waffling for 3 minutes already, practically.
I'm sabotaging your 8-minute lesson, John.
You are. This is terrible.
Some people might think I'm doing it intentionally.
Stop it. Second conditional, unreal. What do I mean when I say unreal?
I think is it when you use a past tense, but you're not talking about the past.
It's not exactly what I mean, but yes.
It's basically that, isn't it?
Yeah.
If I had 10 million, I would buy a private jet. I'm sure they're more than $10 million. I know the idea of the cost of a private jet. But if I had, that's a past tense. Had is a past tense, but I'm talking about the future.
Yeah, that's true.
That's what scares people.
That is what scares people. So I guess in the English language, we don't have a conditional tense like maybe you would in other languages. To substitute the conditional tense, which we don't have, we use the past simple, don't we? After the if clause, then that means it's not to do with past simple, is it? Even though it is the past simple, it's to do with the present and the future.
Is that a question or have you given the answer already?
Well, I just want an affirmation so that you've done that.
Why do you need to be validated, John?
Why do I have you on the show? I mean,
why don't you give your dear listener a few examples?
Well, we've given your example. I'll give another example.
Okay.
If I had somebody else to do this podcast episode with, I would call them right now.
Thank you. That's a good example. Okay, let me think of an example. If I were free tomorrow, I would go to the beach. Probably not true, it's in Paris, but that's right, isn't it? If I were free tomorrow, I would go to the beach. Yeah, that's the second conditional.
Yeah, that is the second conditional.
Okay,
yeah.
So I'm not free tomorrow. So I'm talking about a hypothetical future.
Yes.
And I'm not using was, and the verb to be, usually it's were. You hear some people saying was.
You can use was in this context, can't you?
Yes and no. It's up for debate. As a grammar teacher, you say, oh, yeah, you have to use were, but come on. Lots of people would say was, and fair enough. If I was you, probably if you're writing formally, you'd say, if I were you, I would do this.
What I learned is that if you're putting yourself in somebody's position by saying, if I were you, I wouldn't do this, in terms of advice, we'd always use were.
Okay.
Whereas if you're talking about something that's fantasy, if I was an elephant or if I were an elephant, you can use both of them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's how I always learned it.
If I was an elephant, well, how's that different? If I was an elephant, if I were you?
Don't know, but that's how I...
What if you're an elephant? If you're an elephant, it would be the same.
I wouldn't be speaking English if I was an elephant, would I?
Maybe you're one of these exceptionally talented elephants.
Maybe. I think we're going off track here. That's how I learned it. So anyway, I've decided that is a rule. I think it is a rule. So we're going to stick with that one.
If I could speak Japanese, I would read manga. That's an example. I just trying to think of an example. But that's right, isn't it? So can becomes could
Yeah.
for ability.
Yeah, exactly.
And the second part is usually would. It could be might, usually it's would.
I mean, I guess it could be could as well, couldn't it? That's the structure, isn't it? Subject plus past simple. So if plus subject plus past simple, and then you got comma plus subject, and then would, could, might plus infinitive without two, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think we've done that.
Okay.
Everybody should be fine with that one. Third conditional.
Third conditional, you need a past perfect, don't you?
You do
This
need
is
a past perfect, yeah.
This is a hypothetical past. Am I right?
It is, yes.
Something that didn't happen. Also, I use it to express regrets, John.
I know.
If I had known she were married, I wouldn't have given her a donut. Sorry, I started one. I couldn't think of how to finish it. So it's a terrible example.
Yeah, I didn't think people
John's cursing me now for all the editing he has to do. Bloody hell, it's bad. A nightmare, that guy. I've never invited him again.
Every time, in fact. I think I was expecting you to say something a bit more risque then.
Yeah, I guess it could be like a double entendre if you know that. Explain what that is.
Yeah,
but yes.
I thought you were kissing married women then or something.
You give an example then.
Okay, so if I had gone to your amazing party where you invited Dua Lipa and she performed, as well as Matt Damon, then I would have had the most amazing time.
Yeah, exactly. If you had invited Matt Damon onto your podcast instead of me, you would be, I know.
Now
you
you're
would have been. Now I'm mixing my conditionals. That's the thing with the past conditional, the third conditional. Both parts have to be in the past, don't they?
They do.
Because if not, it becomes a mixed conditional. And you don't want that, do you?
No, you don't. But they do exist.
But I have to scrap my example though, or change it.
True.
If you had invited Matt Damon on the podcast, he would have been very happy to participate.
Yeah. Or we would have done American English. Maybe.
We would have done, yes, yours example is better. We would have done American English because both parts are in the past. So would have and a past participle.
Indeed.
Or you could use might have, couldn't you? As I said, there's for possibility. We might have done something on American English.
That's perfect.
It's good we agree on something. It's really rare, isn't it?
It occasionally happens.
About a third conditional, can I return to that for a second?
Yeah, why not?
I don't know if you're good. The extended remix of this podcast, 12-inch version. With the third conditional, instead of using if, I think it's important to mention this, you can just use had, can't you? Had I known you were coming, I would have organized a party. Because sometimes we don't say if. It has the same meaning, doesn't it? You can just do an inversion with had, remove the if, and do the version had you told me instead of if I had known.
That's very true. And I guess that would make you sound much more like a native speaker, wouldn't it? To say that. Really.
It is really common to say that. To be aware of that.
I mean, had I known that you were going to ramble on so much, I wouldn't have invited you on the show. Thanks very much. And you've been listening to 8 Minute English.